Sophia Martinez pressed her paint-stained fingers against her empty stomach as she surveyed the opulent ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors, while elegantly dressed guests sipped champagne that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She tugged at the borrowed emerald dress her roommate had insisted she wear, feeling like an imposter among the city's elite at the annual Children's Hospital charity auction. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she stood, surrounded by millions of dollars in artwork hanging on the walls, while her own paintings gathered dust in her cramped studio apartment. 3 rejection letters from galleries this month alone had nearly broken her spirit, but the promise of free hors d'oeuvres and potential networking opportunities had convinced her to attend. Sophia made her way toward the appetizer table, weaving between clusters of important-looking people discussing stock options and vacation homes in the Hamptons. A waiter appeared beside her carrying a tray of red wine, and she gratefully accepted a glass. The rich burgundy liquid warmed her throat, temporarily easing the knot of anxiety in her chest. As she turned to admire a stunning landscape painting, her elbow collided with something solid. Time seemed to slow as she watched in horror as her wine glass tilted, sending a cascade of deep red liquid across an immaculate white shirt and expensive charcoal suit jacket. "Oh, my God, I'm so sorry," Sophia gasped, frantically grabbing napkins from a nearby table. "I didn't see you there. I'm such a klutz. Please let me help clean this up." She looked up into the most striking pair of steel blue eyes she'd ever encountered. The man towered over her 5'4" frame, his dark hair perfectly styled despite her catastrophic introduction. Sharp cheekbones and a strong jawline gave him an almost aristocratic appearance, while his broad shoulders filled out his ruined suit jacket with masculine confidence. "It's fine," he said, his voice a rich baritone that sent unexpected shivers down her spine. These things happen. But Sophia was already dabbing at the wine stain, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. The fabric of his shirt was incredibly soft, and she became acutely aware of the warmth of his body beneath her fingertips. "This is probably a $1,000 suit, isn't it? I'll pay for the dry cleaning, or replacement, or whatever you need." A hint of amusement flickered in those mesmerizing eyes. "You don't need to do that." "Yes, I do. I ruined your clothes at a charity event, which makes me officially the worst person here." She continued her futile cleaning efforts, acutely conscious of how close she was standing to this gorgeous stranger. He smelled like expensive cologne, and something uniquely masculine that made her head spin. "Actually, you might be the most honest person here," he replied quietly. "Most people at these events are more concerned with being seen than actually helping children." Sophia paused in her cleaning, looking up at him with surprise. "You don't seem like the cynical type. You'd be surprised what money and power reveal about people's true nature." His expression grew serious for a moment before softening. "I'm Damian Blackwood." The name hit her like a physical blow. Damian Blackwood, founder and CEO of Blackwood Technologies, one of the most successful companies in the country. His face had graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune magazine more times than she could count. She was dabbing wine stains off one of the most powerful men in the city. "I'm Sophia," she managed, her voice slightly hoarse with shock. "Sophia Martinez. And I just destroyed the shirt of a billionaire." Damian chuckled, a warm sound that made her stomach flutter unexpectedly. "The shirt will survive. Are you enjoying the auction?" Sophia glanced around the room, noting how other guests were stealing curious glances at their interaction. "Honestly, I feel completely out of place. I'm only here because my roommate thought it might be good for my art career, but I don't know anyone, and I can't afford to bid on anything." "You're an artist?" Genuine interest sparked in his eyes, a struggling one. "Very struggling." She finally abandoned her cleaning efforts, realizing she was only making the stain worse. "I paint landscapes mostly, though I've been experimenting with abstract pieces lately. Not that anyone seems interested in buying them." "Show me." The simple request caught her off guard. "What?" "Show me your work. I'd like to see what you create." Sophia stared at him in disbelief. "You're just being polite because I ruined your shirt." "I'm never just polite," Damian said with conviction. "If I didn't want to see your art, I wouldn't have asked." Something in his tone convinced her he was telling the truth. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, scrolling to her gallery of paintings. Damien moved closer to see the screen, his proximity making her heart race. She was acutely aware of his attention as she showed him piece after piece, explaining her inspiration and techniques. "These are extraordinary," he said, after viewing her entire portfolio. "The way you capture emotion through color and texture is remarkable. This one especially." He pointed to a sunset over the ocean that she'd painted during a particularly difficult period in her life. "It speaks to something deeper than just technique." Tears pricked Sophia's eyes at his genuine praise. When was the last time someone had looked at her work with such appreciation? "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more to me than you know." Damien studied her face intently, as if memorizing every detail. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night." The invitation was so unexpected that Sophia nearly dropped her phone. "I'm sorry, what? Dinner? Tomorrow? I'd like to continue this conversation somewhere quieter." His gaze never wavered from hers, and she felt like he was seeing straight into her soul. "Mr. Blackwood, you don't have to ask me out because you feel sorry for me." "I don't feel sorry for you, Sophia. I'm intrigued by you." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're talented, genuine, and beautiful. Three qualities that are remarkably rare in my world." The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. This couldn't be real. Men like Damien Blackwood didn't notice women like her, let alone ask them on dates. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Looking into those compelling, steel blue eyes, Sophia felt something shift inside her chest. Maybe it was time to take a chance, to step outside her comfort zone and see what possibilities awaited. Yes. The next evening, Sophia stood before her tiny closet, feeling completely overwhelmed. What did one wear to dinner with a billionaire? Her usual wardrobe of paint-splattered jeans and vintage band t-shirts hardly seemed appropriate. After trying on every dress she owned twice, she settled on a simple navy blue dress that her sister had given her for Christmas. Damien arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, looking devastatingly handsome in dark slacks and a crisp white button-down shirt. The casual elegance suited him perfectly, making him appear more approachable than the intimidating businessman she'd met at the auction. "You look beautiful," he said, offering her his arm, instead of the expensive restaurant she'd expected. Damien drove them to a cozy Italian bistro tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. Fairy lights twinkled overhead as they were seated at a corner table with flickering candles and checkered tablecloths. "This is perfect," Sophia said, visibly relaxing. "Much better than some stuffy 5-star place. I thought you might prefer something more intimate." Damien's eyes crinkled with warmth. "Tell me about your art. When did you first know you wanted to be a painter?" Over plates of homemade pasta and glasses of wine, Sophia found herself opening up in ways she never expected. She told him about growing up in a small town where artistic dreams were considered impractical, about working 3 part-time jobs to afford art school, about the constant struggle between pursuing her passion and paying her bills. "My parents wanted me to be a teacher," she admitted, twirling linguine around her fork. "Something stable and respectable. They still don't understand why I moved to the city to chase what they call impossible dreams. Dreams are only impossible if you give up on them," Damien said quietly. "I started Blackwood Technologies in my garage with $500 and a laptop. Everyone said I was crazy to think I could compete with established companies, but you had business training, connections, advantages I don't have. I had determination and a willingness to work 18-hour days for 3 years straight." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "Talent like yours doesn't come along often, Sophia. You just need the right opportunity." Something in his tone made her pulse quicken. "What kind of opportunity?" Damien set down his wine glass and studied her face carefully. "Blackwood Technologies is renovating our headquarters. We need original artwork for the executive floors, lobby, and conference rooms. Something that reflects innovation, creativity, and human connection." Sophia's breath caught. "Are you offering me a commission?" "I'm offering you a chance to showcase your work to thousands of people every day. CEOs, investors, potential collectors. The kind of exposure that could launch a serious career. Her hands trembled slightly as she processed his words. Damien, that's incredibly generous, but I can't accept charity. This isn't charity. His voice carried a note of authority that reminded her exactly who she was dealing with. I've seen your portfolio. Your work has exactly the emotional depth and technical skill we need. This would be a legitimate business transaction. What would something like that pay? She asked hesitantly. When he named the figure, Sophia nearly choked on her wine. It was more money than she'd ever seen at one time. Enough to pay off her student loans and rent a proper studio space. That's too much, she whispered. That's what quality art costs. Damien reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm. Say yes, Sophia. Let me help you build the career you deserve. The warmth of his palm against hers made it difficult to think clearly. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. I know enough. His thumb traced gentle circles on her knuckles. I know you're incredibly talented. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. And I know that when you smiled at me last night, something inside me came alive for the first time in years. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. The restaurant seemed to fade away until there was only Damien's intense gaze, and the feeling of his skin against hers. This is crazy, she breathed. The best things usually are. He lifted their joined hands and pressed a soft kiss to her fingertips. The gentle touch sent fire racing through her veins. Have coffee with me after dinner. Let me show you the space where your paintings would hang. An hour later, they stood in the empty lobby of Blackwood Technologies. Moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting dramatic shadows across the marble floors. Sophia turned in a slow circle, envisioning her work displayed on these pristine walls. The main piece would go there, Damien said, pointing to a prominent wall visible from the elevators. Something bold and inspiring that captures the spirit of human innovation. I have the perfect painting, Sophia said excitedly. It's a piece about breakthrough moments, when everything suddenly becomes clear. I call it emergence. I'd love to see it. They spent the next hour walking through the building as Damien described his vision for each space. His passion for his company was evident in every word, and Sophia found herself drawn not just to his success, but to the genuine care he showed for his employees and their work environment. You really love what you do, she observed as they returned to the lobby. I used to. Lately, it's felt more like going through the motions. He turned to face her, his expression vulnerable in the dim lighting. Until last night, I couldn't remember the last time I felt genuinely excited about anything. What changed last night? Instead of answering with words, Damien stepped closer. His hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones with infinite tenderness. You changed everything, Sophia. The moment I looked into your eyes, I knew my life would never be the same. Damien, she whispered, her voice shaky with emotion. I know this is fast. I know it doesn't make logical sense. His forehead touched hers, their breath mingling in the space between them. But I've never felt anything like this before. This connection, this need to be near you, to protect you, to make you smile. Sophia's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. I feel it too. It's terrifying and wonderful and completely overwhelming. Then stop overthinking and just feel, he murmured against her lips. When their mouths finally met, Sophia felt like she was coming home. The kiss was soft at first, tentative and exploring, before deepening with mutual hunger. Damien's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against his solid frame while her fingers tangled in his dark hair. Every nerve ending in her body came alive under his touch. She could taste the wine on his lips, feel the rapid beating of his heart against her chest, breathe in the intoxicating scent of his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Damien rested his chin on top of her head, holding her close as their hearts gradually returned to normal rhythm. Come home with me, he said quietly. Sophia pulled back to look at him, seeing desire and something deeper burning in those steel blue eyes. Every rational thought in her head screamed that this was moving too fast, but her heart was singing a different tune entirely. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. His hands cupped her face again, thumbs stroking her cheeks. I want to wake up with you in my arms. I want to make you breakfast and listen to you talk about your paintings. I want to show you what it feels like to be treasured. The raw honesty in his voice undid her completely. Yes, Damien's penthouse was a masterpiece of modern design, with panoramic views of the city skyline and furnishings that probably cost more than most people's homes. But Sophia barely noticed the luxury because Damien was looking at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. No pressure, he said softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. We can just talk, or watch a movie, or whatever you're comfortable with. Instead of answering, Sophia rose on her tiptoes and kissed him with all the passion building inside her. This time, there was no hesitation, no holding back. They moved together toward his bedroom, pausing every few steps to touch and taste and whisper sweet promises against heated skin. Later, as they lay entwined in his massive bed, with the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, Sophia traced lazy patterns on Damien's chest while he played with her hair. I still can't believe this is real, she murmured against his shoulder. Believe it. His arms tightened around her. You're not getting rid of me now, Sophia Martinez. I plan to spend every day proving that you deserve all the happiness in the world. Love's true victory. 6 months later, Sophia stood in the center of her first solo gallery exhibition, surrounded by art critics, collectors, and society figures who hung on her every word. The success of her Blackwood Technologies commission had opened doors she'd never dreamed possible, and tonight's show was already being hailed as the artistic event of the season. But none of the praise and attention mattered as much as the sight of Damien across the room, watching her with obvious pride and adoration. He'd insisted on staying in the background tonight, wanting the focus to remain on her achievements rather than their relationship. The artist has quite a patron, remarked Victoria Blackwood, Damien's mother, appearing at Sophia's elbow with a glass of champagne and a calculating smile. Though I suppose that's what pretty young women are for. Sophia had been expecting this confrontation for months. Victoria had made no secret of her disapproval of her son's relationship with someone she deemed unsuitable for the Blackwood family legacy. Actually, Mrs. Blackwood, I've sold 12 pieces tonight without any connection to Damien mentioned in the sales materials, Sophia replied evenly. My work stands on its own merit. How refreshingly naive. Victoria's smile sharpened. Do you really think these people would be here if you weren't warming my son's bed? He'll tire of you eventually, dear. Men like Damien always do. The cruel words hit their intended target, awakening every insecurity Sophia had fought to overcome. But before she could respond, a familiar warm hand settled on the small of her back. Mother, Damien's voice carried a warning as he moved to stand beside Sophia. I trust you're congratulating Sophia on her remarkable success. Of course, darling. Though I was just explaining the realities of your world to your little friend. Sophia isn't my little friend, Damien said coldly. She's the woman I love. And if you can't treat her with the respect she deserves, you're welcome to leave. Victoria's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. Damien, surely you're not serious about this girl. She's completely inappropriate for someone in your position. She's perfect for someone in my position, he replied firmly. She's talented, genuine, kind, and she makes me happier than I've ever been. If you can't accept that, then you're choosing not to be part of my life. The tension in the small circle was palpable as mother and son stared at each other in silent battle. Finally, Victoria turned on her heel and walked away without another word. I'm sorry about that, Damien said quietly, his thumb stroking soothing circles on Sophia's back. She's not wrong about some things, Sophia admitted, her earlier confidence shaken. We do come from completely different worlds. Look around you. Damien turned her to face the gallery filled with people admiring her paintings. You've created something beautiful that touches people's souls. That's not about money or social status. That's pure talent and heart. Before Sophia could respond, the gallery owner approached with several potential buyers in tow, and the evening continued in a whirlwind of introductions and sales negotiations. By the time the last guest departed, Sophia had sold 15 pieces and booked 3 commission requests. I can't believe this actually happened, she said as they drove back to Damien's penthouse. A year ago, I couldn't get anyone to look at my work. And tonight, people were bidding against each other. You earned every bit of this success. Damien lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. I'm so proud of you. Back in the familiar comfort of his home, Sophia finally allowed herself to process the magnitude of what had occurred. She was officially a successful artist with a waiting list of clients and enough money to support herself independently. The dream she'd chased for so many years was finally becoming reality. What are you thinking about? Damien asked, finding her standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Your mother, Sophia admitted. Part of me wonders if she's right. Maybe I'm just a phase for you. Someone completely different from your usual world. Damien moved behind her, his arms encircling her waist as he pulled her back against his chest. My mother has been trying to control my life for 35 years. She's chosen wives for me since I was 20. All perfectly suitable society daughters who bored me to tears. Maybe boring is better than complicated. Boring nearly killed me. His voice was fierce against her ear. I was going through the motions of living, building success, but never feeling truly alive. Then you literally fell into my arms and everything changed. Sophia leaned into his warmth, feeling the solid strength of his body supporting her. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Good. Damien turned her in his arms, his hands framing her face. Because I love you beyond reason, beyond logic, beyond anything I ever thought possible. The intensity in his steel blue eyes made her breath catch. Damien, marry me. The words hung in the air between them, simple and profound and completely unexpected. Sophia stared at him in shock as he dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. I know this is sudden, he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones. But I've known since our second date that I wanted to spend my life with you. You make me laugh. You challenge me to be better. And you love me not because of what I have, but because of who I am. Tears streamed down Sophia's cheeks as she looked at the man kneeling before her, offering her not just his ring, but his entire future. I want to wake up next to you for the next 60 years. Damien continued, his voice thick with emotion. I want to support your art career and travel the world together, and maybe someday have children who inherit your creativity and kindness. I want to build a life that's ours, not what anyone else expects or approves of. What about your mother, your family, your social obligations? None of that matters without you. He took her left hand gently. Sophia Martinez, will you marry me? Looking down at this incredible man, who had changed her life in every possible way, Sophia felt her heart overflow with joy and certainty. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Damien slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands before standing and sweeping her into his arms. Their kiss was passionate and desperate and full of promises for the future they would build together. 1 year later, they exchanged vows in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Sophia wore her grandmother's pearl necklace and carried wildflowers from the meadow where she'd painted her first landscape. Damien's voice shook as he promised to love and cherish her for all the days of their lives. Victoria Blackwood attended the wedding, but remained coolly polite, though Sophia caught her wiping away tears during the ceremony. Some boundaries take time to cross, but love has a way of softening even the hardest hearts. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife, Sophia marveled at the journey that had brought them together. A single moment of clumsiness at a charity auction had led to the greatest love story of her life. Any regrets? Damien murmured against her ear as they swayed to the music. Only one, Sophia replied, smiling up at her husband. I should have spilled wine on you much sooner. Their laughter mingled with the music as they held each other close. Two hearts that had found their perfect match against all odds. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the most unexpected encounters, proving that destiny has a sense of humor and perfect timing. In the end, Sophia learned that falling wasn't always about losing your balance. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, falling means finding exactly where you belong.